At exactly 8:07 a.m., standing in line for my usual coffee, I found out I was flat broke. My debit card declined not once, but twice, loud enough for everyone behind me to hear that humiliating denial beep echo through the cafe like a public service announcement for financial failure. I forced a smile, tapped my credit card to salvage my dignity, and left with a coffee that tasted suspiciously like rock bottom. Outside, still clutching that overpriced humiliation in a paper cup, I opened my banking app just to make sure this wasn't some glitch. It wasn't. $30,000. Gone. Not missing, not pending. Gone. I scrolled through the transactions with growing disbelief until I saw it. A transfer labeled Family Support Olivia Prescott. And if that wasn't enough to kickstart a stroke, the memo read, "He's already rich. He won't even notice." That's when my phone lit up with a text from none other than Olivia herself. "Hey, big brother. Saw your account's looking healthy. Just grabbed a little help for my new chapter. You're such a blessing." My sister Olivia is the human embodiment of a participation trophy. She's mastered the art of doing nothing while expecting everything. Unemployed by choice, professionally allergic to hard work, and convinced that the universe personally owes her a living because she once read half a self-help book. She talks about energetic alignment and manifesting abundance while maxing out credit cards she never intends to pay back. She treats my career like some kind of charity operation she's entitled to benefit from, and apparently she figured it was time to just help herself directly from my bank account without the inconvenience of asking first. But here's the thing about Olivia. She's never had to face actual consequences. Every time she's made a mess, someone's cleaned it up. Well, not this time. I didn't even go home. I sat in my car in that cracked, sun-bleached parking lot with the air conditioning blasting and started making phone calls. Calm, measured, surgical. If Olivia wanted to pull financial stunts, she'd unknowingly stepped into a chess match she was catastrophically unqualified for. First call? The bank. Turns out my darling sister had managed this little digital heist by charming some clueless clerk into adding her as a temporary authorized user on my old joint account, the one I forgot even existed from back when I helped her lease an apartment she never paid rent for. Should have closed it years ago. That's on me. But today, that mistake was about to become her worst nightmare. The bank manager, a painfully polite man named Gerald, tried to walk me through the standard dispute process like we were discussing missing library books instead of a financial ambush. I stopped him cold. "Gerald," I said, my voice so calm it probably gave him chills, "I'm not asking how to fix this. I'm telling you to reverse the transaction and freeze every account she has access to immediately. Today." There was a pause. You could almost hear Gerald swallow on the other end. "Right away, sir." Next, I called the leasing office of the upscale apartment building Olivia loved to parade around on social media. The one with the rooftop pool and concierge service she pretended she could afford on Instagram, always posting captions about hard work paying off, while wearing clothes I knew were paid for on my dime. I introduced myself to the property manager as the co-signer on Olivia Prescott's lease. You could almost hear the shift in tone when I asked one simple question. "Has her rent been paid this month?" Silence. "I'll take that as a no. Please consider this my formal withdrawal as financial guarantor, effective immediately." "But sir, there's a contract." "Yes," I interrupted, "and the contract specifies that the guarantor can withdraw upon breach of payment terms, which you just confirmed. She's missed payments, and now she's on her own. Enjoy the collection process." I hung up before he could argue. One by one, I made sure every door she thought would always be open slammed shut in her face. The final move? A simple email to the local luxury gym where she spent hours networking instead of job hunting. Membership revoked. Courtesy of a declined autopay and one strongly worded cancellation request. By the time I pulled out of that parking lot, Olivia's perfectly curated lifestyle had more holes in it than a cheap pool float. And the best part? She still hadn't realized the walls were already caving in. I couldn't wait for the moment reality introduced itself to her, personally, brutally, and without the slightest hint of sympathy. By the next morning, the implosion had officially begun. I hadn't even finished my coffee before Olivia's name lit up my phone screen like a siren warning of incoming nonsense. 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and an absolutely frantic text that, in classic Olivia fashion, read like a badly written soap opera script. "Ethan, I'm literally about to be homeless. Why are you doing this? I thought family was supposed to support each other. You can't just cut me off like this. People are going to talk." There it was. The holy trinity of Olivia's emotional manipulation, drama, guilt, and public image. And the best part? She still hadn't figured out this was only the warm-up act. I gave it a few hours before finally answering one of her increasingly panicked calls. Her voice came through the line at a pitch only dogs and desperate socialites could hear. You froze my accounts? My rent check bounced, Ethan. The leasing office told me I have 3 days to come up with the full payment, or they're starting eviction proceedings. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee like I had all the time in the world. 3 days? Well, that's practically a lifetime for someone as resourceful as you, Liv. Have you tried manifesting the rent money yet? Or are your crystals on back order? There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by the sound of something crashing. Probably that overpriced salt lamp she bought to cleanse negativity from her life. This isn't funny, Ethan. Do you have any idea what this is doing to me? I can't even renew my gym membership. I'm locked out of the spa. My entire life is falling apart. I set my coffee down and smiled. The kind of slow, satisfaction-filled smile that had been a long time coming. Then maybe it's time you start building a new one. You know, one that doesn't rely on siphoning off other people's bank accounts. For a moment, all I heard was shallow breathing. Then her voice dropped to something dangerously close to self-pity. I didn't think you'd actually do this. You've always been the responsible one. The calm one I thought you'd understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I've spent my entire adult life being the responsible one, Olivia. And you've spent yours treating me like a safety net you could jump on whenever life got a little uncomfortable. Guess what? The net's gone. Welcome to the free fall. I ended the call before she could launch into her next award-winning performance. This wasn't revenge. This was education. And class was very much still in session. By day 3, my inbox looked like a battlefield. Olivia had apparently declared emotional warfare through every digital platform known to man. Emails, texts, voicemails dripping with righteous indignation. And when that didn't work, she went public. I got a heads up from a mutual acquaintance, someone who still followed her circus on social media, that Olivia had turned to what she called her healing community for support. Translation: she went live on Instagram with puffy eyes, a perfectly staged backdrop of flickering candles, and strategically placed tissue boxes, ready to cry her way into some sympathy donations. Guys, she sniffled into the camera, sometimes the people you trust the most betray you in ways you can't even imagine. My own brother, someone who's had everything handed to him, cut me off and left me literally homeless. I don't even know where I'm sleeping tonight. But I'm staying strong. I'm staying positive. If you feel called to help, my Venmo is in the bio. I nearly choked on my lunch. Everything handed to me? Olivia must have blacked out the part of our lives where I worked 2 jobs through college, while she floated through 6 different majors before dropping out entirely to find herself on a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. I kept scrolling. Her followers were eating it up. Comments flooded in. Stay strong, Queen. Karma's on your side. Men are so heartless. You deserve better. Just sent you $50. Keep shining. And that's when I realized she wasn't just playing the victim. She was profiting from it. But I wasn't even mad. No, this was Olivia in her purest form, spinning disaster into a performance with just enough sob story to wring out a few dollars from strangers desperate to feel charitable. Friday morning, precisely at 9 a.m., I put on my best suit, not for court, not for a job interview, but for a meeting that would flip the final switch on Olivia's crumbling reality. I walked into the office of Mark Delaney, property investor and, more importantly, the man who owned the very building Olivia was still barely clinging to like a social climbing barnacle. I'd helped Mark finance his first big commercial deal years ago when I was still working 16-hour days and sleeping on a mattress that sat directly on the floor. Let's just say he owed me a favor. Mark leaned back in his chair, a grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. So, you're really going through with it? I sipped the black coffee he offered and set it down with a calmness that almost felt like arrogance. Mark, I'm not just going through with it. I want every comfort she's built out of thin air to evaporate before she can even post about it. He chuckled. Well, the eviction notice is already processed. But you sure you want to take it a step further? I nodded slowly. List the apartment. Publicly. Premium listings. Every real estate site you can think of. Make sure she sees it before the movers show up. Let her watch strangers tour her perfect little palace while she's still packing up her overpriced essential oil diffusers. Mark let out a low whistle. That's cold. No, I corrected, standing up and straightening my cuffs. That's clarity. Long overdue clarity. By noon, the apartment was live on every major listing platform. Professionally staged photos splashed across the internet, complete with captions like, luxury living in the heart of the city, available immediately. At 2:15 p.m., Olivia called. No pleasantries this time. No false sweetness. Just pure, undiluted panic. Are you serious, Ethan? You're kicking me out and putting my place on display like some kind of clearance item? It's not your place, Olivia. It never was. And trust me, you should be grateful I'm handling this professionally. If it were up to me, I'd be charging people admission just to watch you pack. The line went dead. And for the first time in years, so did every ounce of guilt I'd ever felt about standing up for myself. By Saturday afternoon, Olivia's fall from grace had achieved full terminal velocity. The last defense mechanism she had left, denial, was collapsing under the weight of actual cardboard moving boxes. I heard about it not from her directly, of course. No, Olivia had moved beyond direct confrontation. She was deep into phase 3 of her crisis cycle, public martyrdom. A mutual friend sent me a clip from her latest live stream, this time filmed directly from the chaos of her half-packed apartment. Behind her, the immaculate designer furniture she once flaunted was now stacked awkwardly like a failed game of emotional Jenga. Sometimes, Olivia's voice cracked perfectly on cue, you build your entire life thinking people will support you, thinking they'll stand by you. And then, one morning you wake up and realize, you're alone. She paused, eyes glassy but not quite letting the tears fall. She was a professional at this. Just the right amount of vulnerability to rake in sympathy without smearing her $80 organic mascara. I'm not asking for charity, she continued, conveniently seated in perfect lighting. I'm asking for kindness. And if the universe has placed it on your heart to help me through this journey, you'll know what to do. Right on cue, her Venmo and PayPal handles appeared like credits at the end of a tragic movie. And the donations rolled in again. Small amounts, 20 here, 50 there. But enough to keep her afloat just a little longer. I leaned back in my chair and watched the final pieces fall exactly where I intended. Because here's the thing Olivia didn't understand. This wasn't just about money. This was about forcing her to finally face the truth she'd dodged her entire life. Actions have consequences. Comfort isn't a permanent state of being when it's built on someone else's effort. And as much as she fought it, she was finally out of lifelines. But just when I thought the performance had peaked, Olivia pulled a final desperate act I didn't see coming. She showed up, unannounced, uninvited, and standing right outside my apartment door, knocking like someone who had nothing left to lose. And for the first time in this whole mess, I hesitated before opening it. The knocking wasn't the timid, apologetic kind you might expect from someone whose entire life just went up in flames. No, Olivia's knock had rhythm, confidence, even a little arrogance, like she fully expected me to open that door, embrace her, and somehow declare this whole thing a temporary lapse in judgment. She was wrong. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame, arms crossed. There she stood, dressed for maximum visual impact. Disheveled just enough to look tragic, but still wearing a scarf I knew cost more than my monthly car payment. Her oversized sunglasses trembled ever so slightly as she pulled them down dramatically, revealing eyes red enough to suggest either genuine tears or an Oscar-worthy rehearsal. Ethan, she whispered, like she was the protagonist of a war film returning from the front lines. I stared at her, unmoved. Let me guess. You're about to tell me how this is all a huge misunderstanding and somehow, despite transferring 30 grand out of my account, you're still the victim here. Her lips quivered, but I knew better. Olivia wasn't used to conversations she couldn't steer. She paused, gathering her words like she was calculating exactly how much honesty she could fake without cracking. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. You thought I'd clean up the mess again. Just like every other time, I cut in, my voice low and sharp enough to slice through the carefully constructed performance. This isn't one of your spiritual retreats, Olivia. There's no last-minute sponsor flying in to bail you out this time. She reached out, hand trembling like she wanted to touch my arm, like some grand gesture would erase years of this nonsense. I'm your sister, Ethan. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I took a slow breath, held it, and let the silence hang just long enough to feel like a verdict. It used to, I said quietly. Back when family meant being there for each other, not bleeding each other dry. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting away as if she finally realized this wasn't going to end the way it always did. What am I supposed to do now? She asked, her voice cracking for real this time. For a moment I almost felt the old guilt rise up, the familiar urge to rescue her. But then I remembered every sleepless night, every dollar scraped together, every time I chose hard work while she chose excuses. I met her eyes, steady and final. You figure it out, Olivia. Like the rest of us had to when nobody came to save us. And with that, I closed the door. For good this time. The thing about finality is that it feels quieter than you expect. No dramatic shouting, no fists pounding the door, no last-minute pleas echoing down the hallway. Just silence. Thick and absolute. I stood there for a moment, palm pressed flat against the door, waiting for the inevitable second round. The tears, the promises, the hollow apologies meant to slip through the cracks of my resolve. But none of it came. Instead, the hallway remained empty, and for the first time in years, so did the space Olivia occupied in my life. By Sunday morning, the digital battlefield she'd created started to fall silent too. Her desperate live streams stopped. The cryptic quotes about betrayal vanished. No new donation links, no teary-eyed selfies. It was almost impressive how quickly she disappeared when the money dried up. I should have felt triumphant. This was the outcome I'd engineered down to the last humiliating detail. And yet, standing in my spotless apartment, coffee cooling on the counter, there was no satisfaction. Just a quiet kind of relief. The kind that doesn't make headlines or social media reels. It just lets you breathe without the weight of someone else's chaos pressing down on your chest. And that's when the letter arrived. No digital trail. No email. A real, actual letter, handwritten. Folded carefully inside a plain envelope slid under my door while I wasn't home. I almost threw it away on sight. But curiosity is a stubborn thing. The handwriting was unmistakable. Perfectly dramatic loops and curves like everything she did was meant to be seen, meant to perform even when no one was watching. I unfolded the paper. Just one line. For the first time in my life, I don't know what comes next. No signature, no explanations, just that. And somehow, for Olivia Prescott, that was the most honest thing she'd ever said. Days turned into weeks, and for once my phone stayed quiet. No late-night crisis texts, no sudden emergencies requiring a wire transfer, no dramatic voicemails that felt like they were lifted straight from a soap opera script. It was almost unsettling, like walking into a room where a storm had raged for years and suddenly finding it perfectly still. I'd be lying if I said I didn't wonder where she'd landed. Olivia Prescott had always been many things. Reckless, manipulative, an Olympic-level excuse-maker. But homeless wasn't one of them. Even rock bottom had a velvet cushion in her world. That question got answered sooner than I expected. One Monday morning, heading into the office early, I stopped at the corner café. The same café where this entire mess started with a declined debit card and a painfully overpriced latte. And there she was. Not behind the counter. Not seated at a corner table with her phone held high, staging the perfect candid shot. She was working, apron on, hair pulled back. No filters, no grand declarations about energy alignment or finding her purpose through a guided vision quest. Just Olivia, taking orders, wiping down counters, moving fast because the line wasn't going to wait for her to align her third eye. She saw me. For a split second, the old panic flashed across her face like she'd been caught standing somewhere she didn't belong. But then, she didn't run. She didn't cry. She didn't hide behind a screen. Instead, she walked straight over and said something I hadn't heard from her in years. "Good morning. What can I get started for you?" No theatrics, no special treatment. I ordered a black coffee, and she rang me up like any other customer. When she handed me the cup, her fingers barely brushed mine, but her voice was steady. "Thanks for coming in," she said. And in that one moment, I realized something. I hadn't destroyed her life. I'd just made her start living it. Life moved on. Not with fireworks, not with some sweeping orchestral finish, just with quiet, steady momentum. Weeks passed, and every so often I'd find myself at that cafe again. Not intentionally, not as some dramatic check-in to see if she was still there, just out of habit. And every time, without fail, she was. No more designer scarves or cryptic sob stories. No more urgent texts about the universe conspiring against her. Just a woman, showing up to work, brewing coffee, wiping tables, figuring it out one day at a time. It wasn't some miraculous transformation. She didn't become a CEO overnight or suddenly discover a hidden talent that turned her life into a redemption arc worthy of a bestseller. But for the first time, Olivia was standing on her own feet. No safety nets, no escape plans, and most importantly, no expectation that I'd show up to pull her back from the edge. One rainy afternoon, as I waited for my coffee, she approached without the usual polite customer service smile. "You probably think I hate you," she said quietly. I looked up, meeting her eyes. Calm, clear. No trace of the girl who used to play life like a never-ending game of emotional hot potato. "No," I answered. "I think, for the first time, you don't have to feel anything about me at all. You're too busy figuring out how to be you." She gave the smallest nod, eyes glistening, but not with regret. Just acceptance. As I turned to leave, she called out after me. No theatrics, no emotional ambush. "Ethan, thanks." That was it. No long speeches. No drawn-out apologies. And somehow it was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. The chapter was closed. No grand conclusion. Just peace. Exactly the way it should end.